I know, right? Okay, guys, so this is the second SIS class. I'm already like really far behind, so I'm going to just start talking really fast. No. I hope we get a chance to open up SIS tonight. It sounds odd in an SIS class that we wouldn't get a chance to, but as I think about this class more and more, what we did last time, I went back and I watched the video last time, and I thought about the things that I think are important in SIS from somebody that supports it all the time. I think it's a really good idea to discuss architecture as much as possible, right? So while we're going to be talking about features, absolutely, remember I told you last time it's going to be slower with the features, right? Because it's not just a 3-day class. We have to cram in as many features as we can. We actually try to show you how to architect and how to build real packages. So a discussion came up last time that I thought was really interesting. I wanted to follow through on that, about whether we should architect our packages with as a single package with all the tables in a single package, or architect it as more of a COM type solution with all of the tables in separate packages, right? And I think this is an excellent discussion to get into. I really want to hear from you guys, because I know it's kind of like data modeling, right? In that people that have been doing data modeling for a long time, they kind of intrinsically know, well, I put this in this table, and I put a key over here, and I do. And a lot of times it's hard for them to sit down and think about why they do it, because they've been doing it so long, they just know to do that, right? So it's kind of that way. So I've had to sit back the last couple months and really think about why I personally choose to put some, why I choose to break some packages out and keep other packages together, right? So I've come up with a few guidelines that I hope are solid, and hope they stand the test of the people that are criticizing me. But it's just like in replication, isn't it? Because when you go do replication, you have to decide how to split up your subscribers or your publications as well, right? You don't publish 100 tables, right? So you've got to decide, am I going to do it off of size? Am I going to do it off of PK and FK relationships, right? Am I going to do it off stability? Am I going to do it off number of the amount of changes? Stuff like that, right? So every time you have a replication scenario, you also have to make these types of decisions as well, right? So what we have here, let's go ahead and start with the single. And one more thing, it's also like HA too, right? One of the things that gets me about things like packages and SPs and development in general is if you don't have stated goals and you don't have stated landmarks that you want your package to do, right? You don't have specific criteria listed for your package, then how do you know if you've succeeded, right? Like I said, it's the same thing as HA. Everybody always says, well, we need HA, let's put in a cluster. And I say, well, and then, a year down the line after they're supporting their cluster, they find out that their cluster doesn't protect them from, data corruption, from a bad disk, for something. But we've got a cluster, right? So you didn't bother saying, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and then measuring your solution against it. So you have to do that with SIS too, right? You have to say, when you sit down to write out a process, the bigger the process, the more important it is, right? You have to say, what do I want this what are the most important things to me in this package? Are the most important things to me in this package, is it reliability? Is it recoverability? Is it speed? Right? Is it the ability to take pieces of it and use it in other processes? What is most important to me in this package? And until you can actually ask yourself that question and answer that question, you have no idea if your solution has met your criteria or not, because it has no criteria. You're just going to go, yep, it ran, all the blinkies went, and it finished, and everything's green at the end. Good job, right? So not really, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about single packages. Why would you choose to put something in a single package? First and foremost, I say first and foremost. Okay, they're not in any particular order, so everything's going to be first and foremost. But so first and foremost, I think if you've got a lot of interdependencies between the tables, I think it's best if everything is in one package to be able to control the flow. Now, before y'all go crazy on, wait a minute, I know a way around that, it's probably later in the list, okay? So calm down. So if you've got this table that depends on this table, or maybe you're merging data together, you obviously can't merge data from separate packages, right? I know you could put it in a table, but you can't merge data from different packages. You can't multicast data out easily to different packages, right? So if you've got stuff like that that you need to do, then clearly these things need to go in a single package so you can control that stuff, right? If your network, the data, the servers, all of the moving parts and static parts of your process are really, really stable and you don't have a lot of support to do, then put it all in one package, right? Even if everything's going to be done serially, it's much easier to support a single package than it is to support multiple packages. So, you've got your data's never wrong because you've got everything done on the front end the way you should, and everything's perfect there. So you never have any PK violations. You never have any 3-character states. You never have any phone numbers with letters in them, right? Any alphanumeric phone numbers. You never have, any off sexes or anything like that, right? Why not put it in a single package? Okay? If you have any non-SQL dependencies, and this is one of my favorites. Now remember, we're talking about putting things in a single package, right? If you've got a lot of non-SQL dependencies, so you need to drop a trigger file over here, or you need to FTP something over here, you need to pull something from FTP, or you need to PowerShell something over here. Notice how I always slide in that PowerShell? Any of those things you need to do are much easier to do from a single package. Because imagine if you've got 20 tables, all of them in individual packages, and you're calling them something, then you've got to insert that step in between each one somehow. You've got to insert those little steps somewhere, right, as a single package. It's just ridiculous. So non-SQL dependencies absolutely will cause me to put something in a single package. If you think for any reason that you may need to change the logging levels or the style of alerting or the way that you're doing the alerting in the package, right? So if you've got a very volatile environment and one month this group takes care of it, and then next month this group takes care of it, and next month this group, or maybe everything's in flux, so maybe you need to log this type of information this month and this type of information the next month. If you're going to be changing that package level stuff a lot, you don't want to be sifting through 20 packages every time you need to do that, right? That's a single package execution, right? So if you're going to have an unstable package at the package level, then that's another time that you'd want to do something in one package. Now, if you're doing stuff like adding and deleting columns out of your data flows and all that, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because if I'm gonna do it from this table, then that's just the table level. It doesn't matter if I'm in one package and all the tables are there, or if I'm in its own package by itself, right? I mean, I'm changing a column, I'm changing a column. It doesn't matter what's all around it, I'm just changing a column, right? So this is really just more for package level stuff. The only way the only way having everything in one package is gonna help you when you're changing column level stuff or task level stuff is just in having to go through and open up all the packages, which can be a pain. So it really just depends on what's more important to you, right? And I think that's really all I have for single packages. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions, any comments? Did I miss anything?
I think the bigger question is, when would you want to do more than one package?
Exactly. For everybody, the bigger question is, when would I want to do more than one package? Right. And that's what's next. So multiple packages. If your network, your data, say you've got 80 tables, right? 80 is my key word. It's my key number because I have a big package at work that the guy did 80 individual packages and put them all individually line by or in separate tasks in a SQL job, and I have to support it. So 80 is my target zone there. So if you've got 80 tables and maybe your network, your server, your data, something is really unstable and you have to, and every day, every other day, you're in there restarting the process, rather than muck around with checkpoints all the time, which can be iffy at best sometimes, right? They're kind of buggy, or we'll say quirky, right? Not buggy. Then it may be to your advantage to put them in separate packages so that you can restart from an individual spot in the process and not have to do everything, right? Maybe you want the entire process, and this is actually pretty common. When I do put things in separate packages, I pass the entire process, right? So what I want to do is I don't want the process to fail at all. I want to get individual alerts about individual packages that failed and then just go load those, right? But I don't want the entire process to start blowing up and having NOC people calling me and having business people calling me and all these, because everybody's getting all these alerts because everybody's on the NetIQ list, and everybody's going to get these alerts, and then my phone just starts sounding like, you know, something that gets called on a lot. I don't know. I don't have a good metaphor for that. You took my metaphor. Also, if you've got something like that, and or your tables are all completely autonomous, they don't have relationships whatsoever, they can just be loaded any which way they want, I still personally would probably put those in a single package if you didn't have any of the problems with network or data or whatnot. But that is a good time that if you like putting things in separate packages, that is a good time to do that when all of your tables are completely autonomous, right? This one I put in here. This is the last one I have for this. It's a much shorter list, right? I put this in here just as a discussion point, but it's not really realistic. If for some reason you're not doing any logging whatsoever in your packages, and you're not doing any event handling, any alert handling whatsoever at the package level, so there's no reason for you to ever have to change your logging level, then it's okay to put them in separate packages because you won't have to change the logging level 80 times, right? So that's another really good time. Now the solutions. You can use a single package if everything's stable enough, right? You can break them off into multiple packages like we've just been discussing, but there are different ways to break them off into multiple packages, right? There are good ways and there are really stupid ways, okay? I say stupid, but I know somebody's going to throw something at my head because, hey, I do that. Trust me, don't admit it. The good way. If you break something into multiple packages, use a master package to just call all the packages. Don't just have 80 individual packages and put them in 80 separate steps in an agent job, okay? You lose everything. What do you lose by putting them in an agent job? You lose any kind of parallelism, concurrency that you had, right? You lose any kind of workflow that you could get, right? So you lose any package level error handling that you would get, any package level logging that you would get, right? So you can really have kind of the best of both worlds. If you're the kind of guy that really has to have every single table in an individual package, which 5 years ago Microsoft advised, right? Or it was longer than 5 years ago, wasn't it, Tim? It was back when SSIS was in beta. They were actually recommending that every single table for large warehouse loads goes in its own package. They're not recommending that anymore. But at one point, people were following that, right? So if you're one of those people that still has to have everything in its own package, at least put it in a master package and run it so you can run different. You can run them concurrently, right? And you can still have your sequence containers and your loops. You can still have You can still have your non-SQL dependencies in there. You can still do your FTP and everything, and then just call the package after it. So it makes having multiple packages much easier, right? And don't think that just because you have multiple packages that it has to be one table per package, right? Just like replication, you can break it up by size or by frequency or by server or by PK and FK, right? You can break it up by relationships. So just because you choose not to put the entire thing in a single package doesn't mean that everything has to go into 80 different packages. My famous scenario that I keep talking about with my 80 tables, I was able to do two things. I was able to break it up into, I think, 3 separate packages, 3 logical packages, okay? What happened was it went from this server to this server, merged with some stuff on this server, and then as a staging area, and then went over to this next server. So I made those different steps, different packages. So it was really easy. It went from here to here, then here to here, then here to here. Right? Instead of 80 packages, I just tried to do everything. So you could logically support it at whatever phase you needed to. The second thing I was able to do is by putting everything in one package, or more things in one package, right? I was able to gain my parallelism back, and I cut 40 minutes off the execution time overall because I had tables that were now running 5 at a time where they were just running 1 at a time, right? So you can make drastic headway in a package execution by running things at the same time instead of forcing everything to be serial. So just because you have multiple packages, don't think it has to be one. One of the things I've decided to do, I meant to tell you this at the beginning, was I think the format for this class from here on out is going to be, at the beginning, I'm going to pick a major topic of architecture, and we'll discuss it, and then we'll get into an actual lesson. Does everybody like that format? Because I kind of do.
Sounds cool.
All right. Hey, somebody actually said something. You want a book?
Sure.
Here, come get an ebook. There you go.
Thank you.
I encourage ass kissing. Okay. So, what else do I have here? Another thing. How do I put this? One of the things that I've seen quite a bit from certain developers, I'm going to say that into the microphone, from certain developers is they like to pick points in their package, what we call recovery points, right? So if it fails here, we can recover easily. So I'm going to do this a certain way so that I can recover more easily if it fails during this step. And then I'm going to do it here if it fails there so that I can recover better from this step, right? Guys, I get it, but make sure that the recovery point fits. Don't just pick an arbitrary spot and say, because this is a big load, if it fails here, then I'm gonna do something weird in my package that takes it 10 extra minutes to load every day. So in case it ever fails, the users barely feel it, right? Just because it's a big load doesn't make it a recovery point. You're loading 100 million rows, right? That doesn't necessarily make that a recovery point. This leg could be really, 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 really stable, right? And this leg could be, on a bad network segment that it's got a lot of other traffic or tends to drop packets a lot or something, right? Because the network team has some undetermined problem here that they can't figure out. This is your recovery point, not this one, right? So try to develop logical recovery points that will actually do you some good, not just big load, big load, big load, right? Come on, nobody, that's what she said, really? Yeah, you get an ebook for that one. I told you. Okay. All right, so I rushed through that. Does anybody have anything to add, anything to ask, anything to throw? No? Y'all were so talkative 2 months ago. Yes?
You talk about recovery points within a package. How do you restart that package, leaving out all the stuff that preceded that recovery point? Or are you just hosed?
Yeah, the question is, and this is more for the mic than it is for the room, but the question is, when you have a recovery point, how do you recover the package? How do you start that package from that recovery point, right? Well, that's always the architecture, right? You've got to decide where what you need, right? Let's say that we've got a package that ordinarily doesn't fail, okay? and I've got 10 tables in it because it ordinarily doesn't fail, and it's been running for 9 months on its own, and I've never had to do anything with it, and all of a sudden it fails at say, the 7th table. And it's been running for an hour, and I sure as hell don't want to run it for an hour more, right? That's a good scenario? What I tend to do in a case like that is I will because on every one of my servers I load SIS on there, right? So I will tend to export that package and bring it up in Visual Studio on that server, and then just run that task, and then run the next task, and then I will babysit it through the end of it. If I have to do that too many more times, I will rewrite the package and cut it off there and start taking steps so I don't have to do that.
So I heard you got bids on the SQL server?
Yeah. It's useful for a few things, right, to have bids on the server, right? Not only
I can see all kinds of reasons for doing it.
Yeah.
The administrator says, oh, that's a development tool, we don't need it. We don't want it there.
It's a good support tool. I'm not. Talk to me after class, and I'll tell you what your admin is.
I'd like to use it too much.
No, my question was on the same line. We do a lot of logging of ours,
Right.
and we have it so some of our end-of-the-month processes, it will log and send out to the database what the packages have run, and then it bypasses those packages.
Right. Right. So this is actually the only advantage to putting all of your package steps in a job, because you can always just right-click and say Start at Step, and then you can just keep going. Right. That's the only advantage. But to me, it's not worth it for that. I've got too many other ways I can control something like that, including checkpoints. I mean, if it's a simple package, use checkpoints. Right. I mean, they're not a curse word yet. They're just kind of ill-advised to say, right? It's kind of like saying ass in a job interview. Maybe, maybe not, but it's definitely not always a not, right?
Write that down.
Yeah, exactly. You write that down. Anything else?
Would that be an argument for not putting so many things in a single package? Because if you do have to restart at a certain point, you gotta figure out what ran,
Well,
what you have left to do.
yeah. Well, that's where, and the question was, wouldn't that be an argument for not putting everything in a single package because you got to figure out what ran and what didn't run? Well, that's where your level of logging comes in, right? If you're logging things appropriately, then you can fairly easily tell how much of your package ran and where to kick it off from, right? And if you're alerting well, then you should be able to see the step that failed, and then you'll know to go in and fix that step and then go forward. Right?
I do have one question for you. How do you handle stuff? Right now, I'm doing a couple things. I don't know if it's right, but certain processes depend on other processes.
Right?
Okay, those I fail if they stop it. The other ones, it set up the logging. I set up the logging to keep going on the ones that don't. My question is how to say this? I'm doing great good things. What's the appropriate? How much logging is correctly? Because the senior person in my shop, he logs everything. I think it's
That's a beating, isn't it?
yes.
For those of you watching at home, he's talking about how much to log. His admin logs everything. And yeah, that's a beating. When I first got at my current shop, they were doing that. They were logging absolutely. They had every check mark, because they had never had to support it. Right? It was a brand new process for them. They never used SIS. About 4 or 6 weeks after they put it into production, they relaunched all of their packages with about 3 or 4 check marks. Okay, it's just too much because when you go to, it's just hundreds of lines per package, right? I mean, you know that.
And then you don't read them, right?
Yeah, and then you don't read them, but they tell you absolutely nothing. A lot of them. I'm sorry?
It's a waste of ink.
Yeah. I get that.
It's not uncommon to launch your own logging process. You've gone through those exhaustive messages. Some of them are useful, but you really have to dig for them.
Right.
You get creative. You can actually roll your own and do your own logging that's a little more user friendly.
Yeah, that's what Pragmatic Works does. Kind of.
Is that part of their Pass back
BI
everything.
Express.
BI Express.
The
Yeah.
SSIS
If you add auditing to that, then they basically roll their own.
you won't get much out of it. Or if you do, you're gonna spend all day.
Right. And then the queries get more complicated in the log table, and because to filter all that stuff out, right? It's like trying to it's like trying to load a trace into a table, and then get out exactly what you're looking for. It's almost impossible because there's so much junk in there, right? And the query becomes this long, and So yeah. Anything else before we move on?
One thing about the packages, somebody mentioned those really big packages, at what point you cut it off.
Mm-hmm.
Just from a usability standpoint, when you're designing it, really big packages have a lot of metadata, and they go through their validation process
Exactly.
by default, so the user interface experience can be difficult.
Yeah, if you're offline especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to do something offline, it can take. As a matter of fact, I was doing that earlier today. I wanted to open one of these big packages up for you guys and show you something, and I was doing it offline today at home to see how. And it took it like 45 minutes to finish validating everything and give me the GUI back. So I said, that's nothing I can do with the user group. So yeah, that's a good point.
You mean when you open your package in bids, it takes 45 minutes before it becomes available?
If I'm offline, because it's got to try to validate everything, which means it's got to time out.
Oh, I see.
You can set that to true and bypass all that. During development.
Yeah, but I didn't write the package.
But you can always say
By
validate data
default, it's all
also.
set to false.
I'm sorry.
In the package, you can say validate data, and it will just come out.
Not when you're opening. I mean, you have to do that.
There's a delay validation, you can set that to true.
Yes. It's the very first property on the top of each one of the tasks.
Delay
The very one on the top. The package says that's the true.
Right, but the package still has to open first.
It won't validate the sources, it will come out. It will
It
come
will
out.
come out like this.
I'm saying
No.
once it's up, because when you go to open the package here, it starts validating right away, and you don't have the GUI. You can't do anything. So you have to have that package open first before you can do that.
But when you develop in your package.
But I didn't develop the package. That's the point,
Okay,
right?
I got it.
Yes.
One of the things on logging, what I've done with a lot of my store procedures, I have essentially a default parameter at debug where I pass it in, and that way any logging that I'm going to do, any output that I want to do, I'll go ahead and leave that code in there. Just say if at debug one, do all this stuff. If not, just move on. Then I set the default on that to 0, truck along. Is there anything equivalent to that with SSIS where you could have a debugging flag that you say, okay, log all this crud, or don't log all this crud?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, Tim.
I think you could probably experiment with using expressions to either activate or inactivate maybe an execute SQL command, do something like that, and just set your parameter within SSIS to debug those true.
Right.
Go through during the development process, put all my debug stuff in, and then not have some way, and then have to strip it all out because it's like bringing out a fire hose.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that we actually lost with SIS over DTS is the ability to programmatically manipulate the DOM. And it's very specific stuff like that that makes me really, really miss that. Right? Let's see if we can do a little SIS. How much time do I have? Anybody know?
30 minutes.
Wow, really? We may blow through this then. Because I expected that to take a lot longer. Okay, so.
That's what she said?
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, you get a book. Okay, so tonight I'm gonna show you something I want to say kind of cool, but it's cool, but it's also jacked up. And you'll never do this. I just want to show you this because I get the question from time to time, and I actually got the question 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago. Anyway, not long ago, and I just kind of want to kind of show you this. We're going to start there, and I haven't actually planned this. I just did this. I just thought of this just now. So I'm going to do another data flow because I've already got my other data flows set up. And I'm going to say an OLADB source. And this is going to be copying from SQL to SQL. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to drag that guy over there. right there. Doesn't really matter. Let's do a new one. I want to use my host. There we go. That'll work. Now, should I use table review?
No.
No, SQL command.
SQL command. I'm going to say there we go. I'm going to preview just in case. There we go. I'm going to click on my column mappings and I'm good, right? Now, we're going to assume that I went into the connection manager and I set the application name, right, so that I can support it on the other side. Now, I got a lot of confusion on this after the last class, so I got like 4 or 5 emails, and I actually got a different type of question surrounding the same thing. Was everybody wanted to use SQL command here? So, you know, they were confusing it, thinking it was with the source, right? Now, you can use SQL command here, and this is the type that's like really screwed up because of the way it's implemented. I'm going to say this out loud at the beginning, and I'm going to say out loud at the end. You will probably never use this, okay? But I want to show it to you because you can at least see, right? you can see what this functionality is for. The way they did it is really screwed up. So if I use a command in here, what do you think goes in this box? Anybody?
Or update.
Okay. Insert, update, create,
Temporary.
select. Who said select? You get a book. Select, not select. Select star. Select star from what?
Whatever the table you're going to hit.
Give me that book back. Okay, no. This is where it gets screwed up. The destination. It's actually the table you want to insert it into.
That's what he said.
No, he said the table you want to hit,
Well,
which is no. When you hit a table, you're pulling to. Anyway, you're selecting from the table you want to insert into. The way this works, and it's a little counterintuitive, the column list, in this case, is a star because we're not going to type in front of everybody, but we know we're going to expand that, right? The column list is what does the column mappings. The from clause, yes?
Can you have different numbers of columns in the table? Would you just say that your source table has 3 columns?
I'm sure you could. Yeah, sure. Sure.
Provide a default value of 12.
I've never officially tried that, but I don't know why not. Yeah, I don't know why not. So, and this part tells you which table you're going to put it into in the current destination, right? So, it's really weird how it works. Now, why do I say you'll never use this? Because it is slow as hell. I mean, it just creeps. On this box it does, and on my server at work it does. If you have better luck with it, you know, more power to you. But, I mean, I'm talking slow by orders of magnitude, right? So, got that. Notice how the columns are already mapped? So if I come here, I wasn't going to run it.
Have you ever watched the profiler to see what it's doing that makes it that slow?
No, I haven't. Execute. And we'll actually go in there now and watch it.
What's the difference between the OLEDB destination and the SQL Server destination?
Oh, yes, that's the question of the ages, isn't it? The question is, what's the difference between OLEDB and the SQL destination? Yes, one uses OLEDB and the other one uses ADO. Yes. For a SQL destination, the package has to be running on the same box as the SQL destination. The SQL destination supposedly has some performance enhancements that actually that move the data faster. Although in my experience in my environment, it actually runs a little bit slower. And I'm one of the only ones. I've heard one other guy say that he's run across that as well, but almost everybody else says they get a slight performance increase using the SQL destination.
So you run the package from the
It has to be the local server. Yes.
local server.
So that's another reason. And I almost never use the SQL destination because I almost never have a package stay on a single box for its entire lifetime. And I don't want to have to change. You know, it's much better to change a config file than it is to. Yes?
I heard another MVP say that he doesn't use the SQL statements because, or the SQL destinations because every once in a great while they'll throw an error for no reason at all, and you'll go back to it, start again, and it just runs with the exact same data without the error. So he uses OLADB all the time because it never goes
It's
bad.
very finicky.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why he doesn't ever use
Well,
it.
I've had performance problems with it, so I don't use it. So I've never run across that, but I'm not surprised. Not surprised. So you guys getting the idea here how slow this guy is?
Is that the same table with like 6-something million rows?
Yeah. Watch. If I stop it, and I will.
Probably running that select star for every row that you're sending.
Probably.
They're not a person.
Let me come here. Let me go ahead and map that. Now if I come here and run it. Execute task. Don't worry, it'll still be running when we get there.
Did you change both?
I'm sorry?
Did you change both?
No. This should be moving faster. It is moving a little faster. I think Camtasia's kind of pulling it down a little bit right now. Because earlier when I did this yesterday, it just zipped along. So anyway, it's moving faster. So comparatively on this box, right? So like I said, I just wanted you guys to see that. You'll never use it, but you'll get the question sometimes from a developer that says, what is this SQL command thing down here for? How would you use that? Well, that's how you use it. So now, let's go ahead and hit delete. So now we're going to get into everybody's favorite topic. We're going to start with text files tonight. We're not going to get super far down the road because text files, as it turns out, I'm really surprised the further I go in my career how complicated a topic text files is, right? I mean, it's not really as easy as it sounds because nothing has been validated on that side, right? I mean, it's just in a file. It holds anything at all. It can be in any format. It takes anything. There's nothing at all to check the data to make sure it's in there properly. So it can really get screwed up, right? Especially with delimiters. I've had. Okay, so we'll start here. So let me ask you guys something on text files because it's really important to make sure that your text files are formatted properly, right? I mean, that is like probably the biggest thing in doing text files. What do you guys use as delimiters?
Depends on my data, as I'm learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Here. Don't roll your eyes at me, Missy. Did anybody say pipe? Okay, that's what I use by default. I've had that bite me as well. Anybody use tildes?
Anything can bite you. You know, if you're using tabs, they could have text with an embedded tab in it.
I especially don't use tabs.
I love tabs.
Really? I love my files to load. Tab is too easily found in data. In my experience, way too easily found in data. I like to pick something that's not very easily found in data.
Comma delimited has the same problem then?
Comma delimited has the same problem because all you need is one address field or one description field, one comment field, and your whole load is blown. Oh, God, it's just too easy. I'm sorry?
Not if it's a CSV file when your text delimited are close to the post.
Sometimes you don't have a choice, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, we're talking about, there's a difference between files you create and files you're forced to deal with.
That is very true what he said. 90% of the time, there's no choice.
There's no choice.
Right.
This is what we're getting.
Right, exactly. You got to deal with what you got to deal with, right? But I'm talking about what do we use when we send things to people and we want them to be solid, right? CSV with quote delimiters, right? Okay, so you've got a comment field with a quote in it. Customer said, quote, your whole load's blown.
Fixed with. That's fine.
Right?
With that fine.
So there's no one answer. I don't use pipe solely all the time because I've had people put pipes in comment fields. I don't understand. Yeah. Right? So and as a matter of fact,
I like to use anything that's hard to enter via the keyboard.
yeah, exactly.
Your right tabs can get in there, but it's normally going to be a copy and paste situation.
Right.
They copy something that's contained in that.
Right. So one of the things that I find works really well in those really complicated situations is something like pipe tilde pipe. What do you want me to do, right? We actually had to revert to that.
I think that looks like a bird. And they'll say, oh, I want that.
We had like 4 months ago, we get text files in from another group, and they had something in their comment fields like 4 months ago that our developers tried for 2 days to come up with delimiters that would work because it kept blowing. They had weird things in their comment fields, and finally I said pipe tilde pipe, and that's the one that worked. And it was like, are you serious? So I don't like pipe because of nulls, right? Because then it just gets too hard to count columns if you need to do something. Pipe. Is that one column? Is that two columns? So, double tilde is fine. Pipe tilde, but I like it to be even. I don't like pipe tilde because it's not even. I like to have the same thing on either side. I'm OC that way, right? Yeah, I know. So, but anything that's very, very unlikely to be found, like A. I like to use an A as a column delimiter. Thank you. God, geez, tough room. So, okay, so we're here in the flat files. Now, last time I taught you guys how to make a connection manager, right? Did we do anything at all with flat files last time? Is it pretty easy to know how to do a flat file connection manager? The easiest way is when I come in here, I just say new. There it is. Look at that. That put that all the way in there. I got to give it a name. I can't type. Never type in demos. So here I'll say, got to give it a name. My new file.txt, right? I want it to be delimited. Column names on first row, whether or not, right? There's my delimiter right here.
How do you put in custom delimiters? Is there an expression or something?
Just start typing.
Oh, okay. You type over that. All right.
I knew it until you asked, and I was like, I don't know. Let's see. So we're going to use a pipe.
It's not obvious that you could do that.
You're right. Well, that's why I opened it up, because I thought it might say other, but it doesn't. So I'm going to use a vertical bar for that. And got advanced. Oh, and I chose a source, didn't I? Yeah, this is a source. So the file doesn't actually exist, so I can't create it. But that's how you would do it, right? You'd point towards a real file. It would have real data in there. It would show you the real columns in here, right? And then you can choose your delimiters here. So I've already got one, and I will show it to you. Right there. So it's obviously the table. These are my columns, right? Now the cool thing about this is that it does absolutely nothing for you, right? It doesn't name your columns. It gives you nice generic data types, all of that stuff that's going to cause you headaches down the road, right? So you have to do everything yourself. So a couple things. You can't really change anything in here. So when you go into this instance of it, you say show advanced editor, input, output, output columns. Ah, there we go. Now we can get to the columns. And if I click on one, now I can finally get my length, and I can alter the data types, and I can put it in the data type that I want, right? Do I want to mess with this? Do I want to change the data types in here, or do I want to leave it as varchar 50 or varchar 100? I mean, clearly if it's 100, I'm going to have to put more, right? But what do you guys think about putting like an integer in here or a date in here or whatnot? What do y'all usually do? I know what I do. What do y'all usually do? Tim, I'm going to call you out.
It depends on how critical the data is and what my strategy is when it fails.
Okay.
If it's a dimensional load, for example, I can go back and rerun that just at will. If it's something a little more critical that needs to be done in real time and I need to gracefully handle that error, I'll probably do something a little further down.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sometimes you're given a control file that has the lines in the control file, so you can use that and populate this for each column.
If you were to get a string under 50, right now it's going to chop it up. So you have to go less.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's what I said. If you're going to have something that's 100, you're clearly going to have to come in here and change it. But for anything less, for like dates and numbers, bits, anything like that, do you guys usually change these things? Really? No? Okay.
Depends on how reliable the file source is. If I'm getting it from a known place and then it practically, it never fails, then I'll go ahead and change it to the native type.
Right.
Yeah, it's the only thing that never fails.
Yeah. So I tend to go with Tim on this one. It really depends on what I'm going to be doing with it and how I plan to handle the errors, okay? Because handling the errors is really what this is all about. Well, and support too, right? Because you notice it just said column 0 through whoosy-fraz, right? So it's clearly a zero-based array. And when I come here, connection and manager has not been. So I'll put this in the table. You know me. And mapping. So when I go to map this is the first problem. If you don't rename your columns to match the columns on the other side, you're going to have to go through here and drag all these guys over by hand.
If you had a text file that had the header row thing, would that have come in automatically
Yes.
on the line?
Because then it would know what the columns were called. Right? So as I bring these over,
Does it perform pretty fast if, like, you know, one of them is numerically eliminated into a numeric field? Does it perform any better without on the source that it's an integer?
not really. Not significantly. Maybe over like 12 or 15 million rows. The question was, if you have an integer in a text field or in a text file and you export it as an integer, will it perform any faster? Not really. No. Maybe over 50 or 100 million rows you might see a very slight increase, maybe, but no, not really.
How do you configure it to have, you know, control file? How do you configure it to use a control file to determine the data types and the names of columns?
You can't.
You know?
No, that's a control files are a BCP thing. You can't really use that here, Tim. I don't know how to do that. Do you?
I'm sorry, I didn't question.
To use a control file to give you the metadata for the columns, yeah, I don't think you can do that. If so, it's not obvious, right? Yeah, I have no idea. The only way I could think of that you'd be able to use a control file for something like that would be if you read the control file in through a scripting component and took that metadata information and then manually built a text file source connection inside the .NET component based off of that, and then transferred your data. That sounds like an awful lot of trouble to just avoid, moving these lines around, right?
If you have like 200 columns, that's several hours of linking.
It can be, yeah. So,
But hopefully you're only doing that once.
yeah, hopefully.
I don't want to do it. Not even once.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, I don't either. Well, okay, and so you're going to have to go through this pain somewhere, right?
Well, but he just gave a very good example. If you grab all the column names and if that's all you put in a text file as a source, you can do all your linking here, and the columns will be matched. I mean, I've never tried that, but
I don't understand. What are you saying?
if the text files will have the column header, the first row will be the same names as the target table. they will, the source and the target will have been linked.
Yes.
So then that's all you have to do, just come up, put all the name of the columns in the text file, that's the first row, make it as your source.
Assuming you have control over that text source.
The next time you hit it, it
Create
won't
a
work.
dummy file then.
I'm sorry?
For the initial row, you just, copy the column, put it in Excel, transpose it, export it as a CSV, load up one row with all your columns.
Wow, we just live in two different worlds. Okay, so this is a good discussion, though. I like this because, okay, the problem is, and here's where I'm coming from, and I think Tim is coming from the same spot, where you're getting feeds from someone else, and you're not going to babysit these. Maybe you're getting 200 of these things a day, right? So you're not going to be opening up these things and putting column names in the top of them.
Oh, no,
you're
just
setting up
one
lots.
time for your initial map, it's create a file by the name you expect the file to be.
Oh, I see.
File name, it's doing a mapping, and then you overlay that file with the real file, and it will map.
No, that'll break the metadata when the column name changes.
The moment you get the new file that doesn't have those up there, it won't work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you could name your database fields or whatever your source fields were the same name that they were using on their.
Well, that's one thing I was going to say. There's two ways around this, right? Well, actually, there's more. So you can get the column names, right? So in the advanced editor, and I love this conversation. This is just great because you guys are about to call me stupid, but it's all right. I am. So in here in your output columns, you can change the name of the column right here. Right? I know if there are 200. Hold on. Take a deep breath. Hold on. So you can do that, okay? And like Tim said, hopefully you only have to do it once, right? So everything else comes in. So and we've come to accept that. Or you could make a staging table with columns 0 through 199 so that they automatically map from the text file anyway. And then from there move it somewhere else. Right? I'm just saying you could.
You write a view that would just abstract the table.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
This whole thing is because DTS was so much easier. You drop, like all your columns, drop them in the chart.
DTS had this problem too with text files. You still had to map the columns. Okay? DTS had this problem too. This is nothing new. And Informatica has this problem, and what's that other stupid one for? No, I mean, but yeah,
They just need to provide a more consistent or an easier way of changing that data, like table view designed for SQL Server.
yeah. One of the things I would like to see out of Denali, which I doubt seriously we're going to get, but one of the things I'd really like to see is for them to be able to map the columns based off of the array, and not the names, right? So ordinal position instead. That would be nice, you know.
Which is what you encounter 80% of the time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Every now and then they switch. But you notice, okay, so I'm getting the time here. So you notice here I've got metadata out of whack, right? Of course, because that just means that we already know that, and what was this? This was column 1. Anybody know what column 1 is? Yeah, I don't either. So I'm going to go here and look at my table. Let's say class destination. I'll say class. It's the same thing. Columns. And table 1 is first name, and it is varchar 25, and we know that the thing is pumping out varchar 50, right? So I'm going to get this. Now, will it blow up the package? Depends on what logging level you're on, right? But, so no, it won't blow up the package, because I know for a fact that all of them are just going to be 25, right? But you don't like to see any caution flags or any red arrow or any red X's or anything like that, right? So you have to go through and match this up. So, of course, I already showed you how to do that, and I'll do it one more time. And I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through this. Come here, it said column 1. And we know it has to be 25. I'll say 25. And I hope that's the OK button. Hey. I still got a caution flag. Oh, now it's column 2. Do what?
When you were in there, it said you had truncation that said fail. So wouldn't it have failed?
If the value really is.
If the value really, if it actually does exceed, if it truncates something, yes. but it won't truncate anything because it's 25 on each side of the database. It's just 50 here. But all it knows is that that the metadata doesn't match. So if both sides of the database were 25 and the output here were 20, then yes, I would be subject to a truncation failure. Yes, absolutely.
Which I think
But here, since it's bigger, that's not going to happen.
it will happen when you stream column, which is 100, varchar 100.
Right. Yeah. So you see here now it's just moved down to this one. So all of these are out of whack, right? So by default it just gives you varchar 50, right, or string 50, right? I'm not going to go through and fix this because I'm running out of time. The better way to do this is through a derived column. And you just drag that over here, right from over here. Right there. It's a derived column. And if I double click on this guy, you can see it lets me, this is where you can merge columns or add columns or change data types. You can use expressions to alter data in the columns, right? We're doing a very, very simple from one to another. So I'm just, from right here, the derived column name, this is what I want the output to be. This is what it's going to be called downstream, right? I'm telling it to replace. I could say add it as a new column. If I wanted to, if I had a date column coming in and I wanted to separate the date and the time, but I also wanted to keep it whole in the stream, then I could add a date field and a time field in here and then keep that one. So I would add instead of replace, right? And then the expression, in this case, I just want it to be the column itself, and then the data type. Now, if you set your data type, this is one thing I hate about this. If you set your data type when you create this column, you can change it to what you want. If you don't, then you have to delete it and then recreate it with the one that you want. Really? Really? That's the best you could do? So,
Well, that's nothing new to SSIS because that problem was there in DTS also.
oh, was it? Was there a derived column in DTS? No, there wasn't.
Derived column. If you change or add a column, then you almost always have to remove the transform.
You're right. You're right. I remember that. Yeah. Wow. I haven't even seen DTS in forever. Okay. So we're using a derived column for this. The reason we're using a derived column instead of changing the column names up here, can anybody tell me why?
Having same column,
I'm sorry?
you can do having same column, parent column, I mean source column same, and then add one more column and do whatever transformation you want to do on that column.
No.
Validation.
No.
You don't always know what the type of data is when it comes in, correct?
Well, you know because you know what the source and destination look like. I mean, you have to set it to something, right?
Right.
So the question is, so the real question is, why am I setting it here
It's easier to change.
instead of here?
It's easier to change, then you don't have to go to other columns.
It's just another option.
It gives you the abstraction layer.
I'm sorry?
It gives you an abstraction layer between the file and where you put it.
Plus you can change those data types.
Well, it's actually easier to change data types here. So okay, here's since we're so low on time, I actually changed the column names here and here. I did it here to make it easier to work with here, okay? And I did it here because of error handling. Okay? How does this help with error handling? I mean, like in a major way, in a way that you would never, ever, ever think possible. We have to wait till next month.